Tanake awoke suddenly, his back stiff and his eyes droopy. He didn't know how long he had been asleep, but based on how groggy he felt, it hadn't been very long. He glanced around the room, only to be greeted by the same room he always woke up in. It was small, drab, and mostly empty except for a bookshelf with only a few books, a writing table, and a small furnace. The gray cobblestone walls gave the place a cold, uncaring feeling, but Tanake didn't mind anymore. He had been there for the last 11 years. He got up, put on his coat, and ate a modest breakfast, after which he grabbed the book on the writing desk and headed up to the ladder, leading to the roof of the isolated tower. On the second floor there was a storage room, filled with an array of combat supplies, and also that the Union wouldn't have to check on him. Crossbow bolts, shields, potions, and pieces of armor. On the third floor, a storage room for food. It was mostly dried food and cooking supplies. The Union came by to replenish its supplies every 6 moons. The ladder continued up to the roof of the building. Tanake flipped open the trapdoor and climbed up, taking in the sight. The view from the top of the watchtowers was stunning at sunset. Tanake took it all in, inhaling deeply, breathing in the mountain air. He sighed. The sunset here never got any less beautiful. On the roof there was a campfire, kept going constantly by the use of magic. In the right corner there was a gong Tanake used to alert the townsfolk when it was safe to leave their houses. Each family was only allowed half an hour outside every 2 days to tend to their gardens and animals and other things like that. That way, each family in the village got the privilege to go outside. Tanake was never allowed outside of his watchtower, except to pick up food and other supplies every so often. In the corner, piled on top of each other, were Tanake's crossbow, sword, and shield. He picked up his crossbow and put the sword on his back. He leaned, hoisted the crossbow, looking out into the distance, keeping eyes out for any infected. Although with nothing to do and no infected sightings, his mind quickly began to wander. Many years ago, when Tanake was already a seasoned veteran, a plague had come to the land. Anyone unlucky enough to catch the plague would become a lifeless, yet undead creature, slow-moving but incredibly strong. There was no cure and the infected person would chase any still not infected, biting them to transfer the plague. The way to deal with them was a blow to the head. Two-thirds of the country were infected before the survivors of the plague split themselves off into small, sparse, walled-up villages, in a last-ditch attempt to wait out the plague and return to normal life. This had all begun so long ago, and now everyone had gotten used to life as it was, a life of extreme solitude and fear. It's just how life was now, and Tanake was beginning to think that that's all life would ever be. Any remaining members of the military had been ordered to guard the sparse pockets of human life. One guard per watchtower. Tanake knew there was another tower on the other side of the village. He could see it every day, but he'd never see the man inside. His own brother, and he'd never know. Tanake was on the night shift and the other guard was on the day shift. He hated every night. It was just him and the infected, again and again and again and again, with no end in sight. Tired of everything. By now the sun had already gone down, the sky turning from a powerful orange to a dim blue. Tanake lit the torches on the roof for better vision and took a couple of minutes to warm his hands by the campfire. He looked at the hourglass he kept in the corner just in time to see the last of the sand slowly crawl to the bottom of the timepiece, meaning another half hour had passed. He flipped it over and struck the gong 3 times, meaning the last of the people had to get back in their houses. No one was allowed outside after dusk, just in case a few infected managed to get over the walls. The wall had no gates, everything being lifted by a system of ropes and pulleys, but the odd infected might be able to scale the wall. In that case, the lookout on duty would shoot the infected in the head with a crossbow bolt. Lookouts like him had to be amazing shots. It was one of the few things Tanake took pride in for himself. A few hours into the night, and Tanake hadn't seen a single infected. He sat down at his desk, taking the book he brought from downstairs out of the inner lining of his coat. The number 17 was scrawled on the leather jacket of the book. It was the 17th volume of his journal. Writing down his daily experiences and thoughts was the only way Tanake kept himself sane. A cold, quiet wind picked up, blowing his journal's pages around and chilling him to the bone. He pulled his coat close around himself, dipped his quill in ink, and began writing. As of today, it has been 11 years since I have seen my parents and my sisters. I haven't spoken to anyone in around a year. I'm not completely sure if I even remember how to speak at all. The quiet out here is maddening. The only thing I remember is the sound of the wind and the gong. The nights are the worst. I feel cold even when close to the fire. Lately, I began to wonder whether there is any point in writing anymore. I don't think anyone will ever read these words. I am alone. Nobody in this world except me and my stupid books. I see the people outside coming and going. I want to talk to them, but I cannot call out. The sound would alert the infected, and then we would be under siege. Besides, it does not feel right to break the silence. I dare not disturb it for fear it'll crush me. Maybe we deserve this, for all of our warmongering, fear, desolation, and hatred. The pain that we have caused as a nation, as an entire world, is immeasurable. No, that is wrong. The people have done nothing wrong. They watched silently, terrified as the armies of the world butchered and conquered, and though they watched as their own fellow countrymen lose themselves to some abomination of a plague, watched as their old lives, among with the great civilizations of the world, crumble and fade into nothing. People have done nothing wrong. I hope that one day they will be free of this curse, this blight. As for me, I guess it is true that he who lives by the sword must die by the sword. I apologize to the people of this town. I have dishonored myself and them by leaving my post. This is where my story ends. Tanake closed the book, not waiting for the ink to dry. He went downstairs and brought up the other 16 volumes of his journal. He threw them onto the campfire, one by one, watching each one blacken and crumble. He picked up his sword, staring at his own reflection in the polished steel. The world had defeated him. He was going to leave it behind forever. Let the point of his sword rest on his belly, then took a deep breath.